The unexpected arrival. In the vast and silent chamber of the Galactic Empire's council hall, all eyes were on the huge, golden throne where Emperor Zarek sat. He was flanked by his most trusted generals and advisors, each one an alien of immense power. The room was filled with representatives from countless worlds, all speaking in different languages, their voices a low hum of anticipation. The Empire had already begun its invasion of Earth, and now it was time for the final discussions on how to conquer the last few human strongholds. The galaxy's greatest minds and military leaders had already made their decisions. The humans were weak, small, and divided. They would soon be crushed under the might of the Empire. At the far side of the room, near the entrance, a single human diplomat stood silently. Sarah Parker, a woman with short brown hair and a sharp gaze, appeared unremarkable to the others in the room. She was dressed in a simple gray suit, her posture rigid and calm. She had no weapon, no guards. Just her. Sarah was the first human to ever step into this council hall. Most of the aliens in the room had never even seen a human face before, let alone had a conversation with one. To them, humans were just a tiny, insignificant species, easy to control and even easier to defeat. But Sarah Parker wasn't here to speak for the human race's surrender. She wasn't here to beg for mercy. She was here to send a message that would change everything. As the council's debate continued, Sarah waited quietly, her heart beating fast, but her expression calm. She knew that the next words she spoke would be the most important of her life. She had prepared for this moment her entire career. She had trained to be a diplomat, to represent her people with intelligence and tact. But today, she was here for something different. Today, she was the voice of humanity's fight for survival. The General Korath, a tall, muscular alien with sharp features and an intimidating presence, stood up and addressed the council. "We will crush their resistance," he said, his voice booming through the chamber. "Earth's defenders are no match for us. We will take their cities, their leaders, and their technology. By the end of this week, Earth will be ours." The other council members murmured in agreement. Some nodded, others smirked, and a few even laughed. They had no doubt that the humans would fall easily. Sarah's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but she did not move. She waited for the perfect moment, knowing that if she interrupted now, it would be seen as an act of desperation. Then, as General Korath finished speaking, Sarah stood up. The room went silent. Every eye turned toward her. The unexpected had happened. She was speaking. She stepped forward slowly, each step measured, each footfall echoing in the cold metallic hall. The giant alien council members towered over her, but she was undeterred. Sarah's voice rang out clearly as she spoke in a calm but firm tone. "You invaded our planet, and now you will face the consequences." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, no one spoke. The room was frozen. The representatives of the Empire stared at her in disbelief. How dare a human speak like that? Did she not know who she was addressing? Did she not understand the power they held over her and her species? But Sarah's gaze was steady. She was not afraid. She was ready. "You think we are weak," she continued, "but you are wrong. You've made the same mistake that countless empires before you have made. You've underestimated humanity's strength. We will not be crushed." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything humanity had endured over the past few months. They had fought, they had resisted, and now they were ready to fight back. For the first time, a small seed of doubt began to sprout in the minds of the Empire's leaders. The humans were not begging for mercy. They were not surrendering. They were fighting. Sarah's eyes scanned the room, meeting the gaze of each council member. There was no fear in her eyes. There was only determination. She had delivered her message. Now, the Empire would have to decide what to do with it. But before they could react, Sarah turned and walked back to her seat. The silence in the room deepened. It was the calm before the storm. Sarah had set into motion something that the Empire could not stop, and they had no idea what was coming next. The Empire's response. The silence in the chamber lasted only a few moments, but to Sarah, it felt like an eternity. She could feel the weight of the Empire's collective gaze upon her, the disbelief and disdain in the eyes of the aliens who had just been forced to consider that humanity was not as helpless as they thought. Emperor Zarek, a towering figure with pale blue skin and eyes like burning coals, was the first to break the silence. He raised one hand, his long fingers glowing faintly in the dim light of the room, and the other council members fell quiet. His voice, when it came, was calm, but there was an underlying edge of anger. "How dare you speak to us this way, human?" he said, his tone icy. "You stand in the presence of the greatest empire in the galaxy, and yet you have the audacity to threaten us? You are no more than a speck in the vastness of the universe, and you will soon learn your place." Sarah did not flinch. She had expected this. The Empire had always been a bully, overpowering weaker civilizations and crushing them with ease. It was how they had grown to dominate the galaxy. But this time, it was different. Humanity wasn't going to back down. "I am not threatening you, Emperor," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "I am stating the truth. You invaded our planet, and now you will face the consequences." The words hung in the air, and for a moment no one spoke, while General Korath, who had been watching from the side, let out a deep, rumbling laugh, his eyes narrowing as he glared down at Sarah. "You speak with such confidence, little human, but you are nothing compared to the might of our forces. You have no idea what you are up against. We have fleets that span entire star systems, weapons that can wipe entire continents clean from your surface. You will bow to us." Sarah's lips curled into a faint smile. "You have made one mistake after another, General," she said, her voice growing louder, bolder. "You think we don't know about your fleets. You think we haven't studied your weapons, your technology. The Empire has underestimated humanity for too long, and now you will see what happens when we fight back." A tense silence followed her words. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had not expected this kind of resistance, certainly not from the fragile humans they had considered easy prey. "We have already destroyed cities on Earth, killed millions of your people. What makes you think you can stand against us?" "Because we've been through worse," Sarah answered, her gaze never leaving his. "We fought wars. We've survived famines, plagues, and countless other challenges, and we've come out stronger every time. We are a species that never gives up, no matter how impossible the odds." Her words seemed to resonate in the chamber, and for the first time, there was a flicker of uncertainty in the eyes of some of the council members. "You underestimate us," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. "You believe that just because you have superior technology, you can defeat us. But it is not technology that wins wars, General. It is will. It is determination. And humanity has more of both than you can ever imagine." The murmurs in the room grew louder, and for a brief moment, even Emperor Zarek seemed to hesitate. He was a leader known for his power and his cold logic, but this human diplomat was making him question everything he had believed about the so-called insignificant species. Then, as snapping back to his old self, Zarek stood, his voice booming. "Enough," he commanded. "You dare speak to us like this? You will learn your place in time, human. Your resistance is futile. We will break you, and your planet will belong to the Empire." Sarah remained calm, her eyes locked onto his. "You don't understand," she said softly, yet with unshakable conviction. "We've already won." The room fell silent again. Zarek's expression darkened, but Sarah's words hung in the air like a challenge. It was clear now that this was no longer a simple diplomatic negotiation. This was the beginning of something much larger. As the council meeting came to a close, Zarek gave a final cold glance toward Sarah before turning away. The decision had been made. The Empire would crush humanity, and the invasion would continue. But in the back of his mind, a seed of doubt had been planted. Sarah knew the fight was just beginning. The Empire had underestimated humanity once, and now they would pay the price. She had set the stage, and soon, the entire galaxy would witness the power of Earth's greatest weapon, human resolve.
The hidden forces of humanity. Back on Earth, the situation was dire, but it was not hopeless. While the Galactic Empire's invasion forces had been occupying cities and overwhelming the planet's defenses, humanity had quietly prepared for this moment for decades. Unknown to the Empire, Earth had been hiding its greatest strength, the human spirit, its ability to adapt, innovate, and fight back against overwhelming odds. Ambassador Sarah Parker knew that words alone wouldn't win the war. She had made her statement in the Galactic Council, but back on Earth, humanity was already gearing up for a fight that would shake the Empire to its core. In the heart of a hidden military base beneath the mountains of North America, a team of scientists, engineers, and military strategists were working around the clock. They had been secretly developing technology for years, undetected by the Empire's surveillance systems. Dr. Maya Patel, a brilliant scientist and the leader of the project, stood over a holographic display of Earth's continents. The map was filled with blinking red dots, indicating key locations of the Empire's forces. But the surprising part was the number of blue dots, human strongholds, bases, and underground networks that the Empire had never discovered. "They think they control Earth," Dr. Patel muttered, eyes scanning the map. "They haven't even scratched the surface." Beside her, Commander James Carter, a seasoned military strategist, crossed his arms, staring at the map with determination. "The Empire's arrogance is their biggest mistake. They think they've broken us, but they've only provoked us. We've got one shot at this, and we need to make it count." Carter turned to Dr. Patel, his face grim. "Are the new weapons ready?" Dr. Patel nodded. "They're ready, but we need to get them to the front line quickly. These devices will disable the Empire's ships and ground their technology. But it's not just about the weapons. We've been training the civilians in resistance tactics. When the time comes, everyone will fight. This is humanity's moment." On the surface, the world was still under siege. Cities were burning and millions of lives had been lost. The Empire's forces were merciless, destroying everything in their path. But the human resistance, though small in numbers, had grown stronger and more organized. The Empire's forces had no idea that humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. As Sarah sat in her quarters, the weight of her responsibility pressed heavily on her. She had made her declaration to the Galactic Council, but now she had to ensure that humanity could follow through. She was a diplomat, but now she had to be more than that. She had to be a symbol of hope. The survival of her species depended on her ability to rally not just the Empire, but every human being willing to fight. A message arrived, flashing across her screen. "Operation Phoenix is a go." "It's time," she whispered to herself, standing up. She walked out of her quarters with purpose, knowing that the war was far from over. Humanity's weapons were in place, their strategies were set, and now the real battle would begin. Meanwhile, in the Empire's military command center, the mood was confident, perhaps even overconfident. General Korath paced back and forth, reviewing reports of his fleet's recent victories on Earth. He had crushed human resistance wherever it appeared, wiping out cities and crushing the remaining military forces. But there was something he couldn't ignore. A subtle shift in the air, something that didn't quite feel right. Despite the apparent victory, there were whispers of unexpected encounters, unexplainable phenomena. "The humans are resourceful, but they're no match for our forces," Korath grumbled to his advisor, Shalka, a tall, insectoid alien who had been observing the recent data with concern. "We'll break them soon enough." Shalka didn't respond immediately. Instead, he pointed to a screen showing a report from Earth. It detailed strange energy signatures and the sudden appearance of new, highly advanced human technology. Korath frowned. The reports were vague, and no one had been able to explain what was happening. Earth's resistance was clearly more organized than expected, but still, it seemed like a minor nuisance. "We should have eliminated them entirely," Korath muttered under his breath. "Perhaps the humans are more capable than we thought," Shalka said, his voice low. "I've received reports of strange phenomena in the atmosphere, energy pulses that don't match anything in our database. We may be underestimating them." Korath growled, dismissing the concern. "It's just a few lucky shots. Nothing we can't handle. Prepare the next wave. We'll finish this." But Korath's confidence was starting to crack. He didn't know it yet, but humanity had already set into motion a series of strikes that would turn the tide of the war. The Empire's most powerful weapon was its technology, but humanity's greatest strength was something they had never accounted for: the will to survive, no matter the cost. Back on Earth, Sarah Parker stared out the window of her command center. The night sky was dark, but in the distance, flashes of light and explosions marked the beginning of humanity's counteroffensive. The war was far from over, but humanity had made their first move, and the Empire would soon learn that underestimating Earth's resilience was a fatal mistake. The final showdown. The war had reached its peak. Across Earth, the skies were filled with fire as humanity launched its counterattack. Operation Phoenix was in full motion, and the resistance had begun to strike at the heart of the Empire's operations. What had begun as a desperate battle for survival was now a calculated, relentless campaign to reclaim their planet. Ambassador Sarah Parker watched the holographic display in the war room, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The lights from the map flickered in her eyes as human forces, equipped with the newly developed technology, began overwhelming the Empire's defenses. "This is it," Commander Carter said, his voice grim but full of resolve. "We've crippled their fleets in the outer systems, and now we're ready for the final assault on their command center. Once we take down their leadership, the rest will fall." Sarah nodded, her mind racing through the final preparations. The strategy was bold, perhaps even reckless, but it was humanity's best shot at ending the Empire's reign on Earth once and for all. The humans had no hope of matching the Empire's sheer firepower, but they had the one thing the Empire couldn't replicate: ingenuity. The final phase of their plan was risky. A small fleet of human warships, armed with electromagnetic disruptors, would infiltrate the Empire's home fleet, located just outside Earth's orbit. Their task was simple, but dangerous. Disable the Empire's flagship, the Tyrant, and hold it long enough for Sarah to send a final message to Emperor Zarek. The fate of Earth depended on it. But Sarah's mind wasn't just focused on the war. As she prepared for the final confrontation, she found herself thinking about the moment when she first spoke in the Galactic Council. The Empire had thought her words were a bluff, a last-ditch attempt to buy time. They had no idea what they had unleashed that day. "This is the beginning of humanity's resurgence," Sarah whispered to herself, standing in front of the large window that overlooked the battlefield. Meanwhile, the Galactic Empire was scrambling. General Korath stood in the nerve center of the Tyrant, his face twisted in fury as he barked orders to his subordinates. "We should have wiped them out when we had the chance," Korath growled, slamming his fist into the control panel. "I underestimated their resourcefulness, but now they've pushed us to the edge. We'll crush them with everything we've got."
But even as Korath issued his orders, doubts began creeping into his mind. Earth's resistance had grown unexpectedly. The Empire's technology, once seen as invincible, was being undone by human innovation. The once unstoppable warships were now being brought down by weapons that defied the Empire's understanding of science. "We've underestimated them," Korath admitted, gritting his teeth. "But it's too late to turn back. We will crush them, once and for all." The engines of the tyrant hummed with power as it readied itself for the final battle. The Empire's flagship was a symbol of their dominance, a massive warship capable of devastating entire planets. It was designed to be unbeatable, invincible. But the Empire didn't realize that it was about to meet the one force it could never conquer: humanity's unity and resilience. As Sarah's fleet approached, the atmosphere on board was tense. The Resistance fighters knew this would be their most difficult mission yet. They had taken down the smaller ships, sabotaged the Empire's resources, but the real battle lay ahead. If they didn't succeed in taking down the tyrant, everything would be lost. "This is it, people," Commander Carter said. "Stand."
A new era. The Empire's flagship, the Tyrant, was now a smoldering wreck. The once mighty warship, a symbol of galactic domination, had fallen to the ingenuity and courage of a single species: humanity. But this victory wasn't just about military prowess, it was about something deeper, something that the Empire had never understood. Ambassador Sarah Parker stood at the center of the command room, looking out at the vastness of space as the Empire's forces retreated in chaos. Her pulse was steady, but her mind raced. The battle was won, yes, but this was only the beginning. Her transmission to Emperor Zarek had been the final blow to the Empire's dominance, but now the galaxy was watching. Earth had just emerged from the shadows of a dying war, and humanity's future was no longer one of oppression, but of freedom and possibility. The time for diplomacy had come, time to build a new order, a new alliance, and a new destiny for Earth. Around her, the members of the human resistance, military leaders, scientists, and everyday citizens stood in silent awe. They had fought tooth and nail for this moment, and now it was theirs. The Empire had underestimated humanity at every turn, and now Earth had the galaxy's attention. Commander James Carter walked up to Sarah, a faint smile on his face. "We did it," he said simply, his voice a mix of relief and pride. Sarah met his gaze. "We did, but we're not done yet." There was still much to be done. Earth had suffered immensely during the invasion, and while the Empire's grip on the planet had been shattered, the scars would take time to heal. The rebuilding process would be slow, and the task of bringing the human race together after such a traumatic conflict was no small feat. But Sarah knew that Earth had something the Empire never had: resilience. They had faced extinction and come out stronger. They had fought not just for survival, but for a better future. And that future was just beginning. The Empire's defeat was a pivotal moment in galactic history. For centuries, the Empire had ruled with an iron fist, conquering and subjugating countless civilizations. But now, as the dust settled, Sarah knew that a new order would rise from the ashes. The other civilizations of the galaxy, who had long feared the Empire's wrath, would look to Earth not as a conquered world, but as a new power, a symbol of hope. "We have to reach out to the other species," Sarah said, her tone serious. "We can't afford to isolate ourselves. The galaxy is watching us. If we're going to lead, we have to show them what humanity is capable of. We don't just fight to survive, we fight to build, to create, and to unite." Carter nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The victory over the Empire was not just about ending a war. It was about changing the way the galaxy viewed humanity. Earth's destiny was now intertwined with the greater universe, and it was up to them to ensure that the lessons learned from this war would guide them toward a brighter future. Across the room, a communications officer handed Sarah a message. The screen flickered the life, and an alien representative from a distant star system appeared. The species was unknown to Sarah, but their message was clear. Earth had earned their respect. "We watched your fight, human," the alien said, its voice calm and measured. "You have proven that even the smallest of worlds can defeat the mightiest of empires. We extend our hand in peace and offer an alliance should you choose to accept." Sarah felt a stir of hope deep in her chest. This was the beginning of something greater than she had ever imagined. Earth, once an insignificant speck on the galactic map, was now a beacon of strength and unity. The Empire's fall had opened the door to an era of diplomacy, cooperation, and peace. She took a deep breath, her voice calm but resolute as she replied, "We accept your offer, and we extend our hand in return. Earth will not be a world of destruction and conquest. It will be a world of collaboration, where peace and progress can thrive." The alien nodded in approval, its image fading from the screen. It was a new dawn for Earth, and Sarah Parker knew that her work was far from over. The fight for survival was behind them, but the true challenge now lay in building a future where humanity could thrive among the stars. As Sarah stood with her back to the window, the first light of a new day began to break over the horizon of Earth. The war was over, but humanity's journey was just beginning. The universe was vast, full of challenges and unknowns, but Earth had proven something undeniable. Humanity would never bow down again. The Empire had fallen, and in its place, Earth would rise.